Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to dive into a condition that, a lot of people have heard of, but very few really get what it's like to live with. Tinnitus. It's usually just boiled down to this one simple phrase, right? Ringing in the ears. But for the millions and millions of people who experience it, this is not just some fleeting annoyance. No, it's a constant, intrusive reality. Just imagine for a second, a high-pitched hum, maybe a buzz, or a constant ringing that's just always there. There's no off switch. Well, this is the daily experience for someone with chronic tinnitus. It's a phantom sound that has no external source at all. And we're not talking about some rare, obscure condition. Not at all. Recent data shows it's a major health concern that affects up to 15% of the entire world's population. That's a staggering number of people, all living with a sound that, to them, is absolutely real, but nobody else can hear. So, to really get why the new breakthroughs in treatment are so exciting, we first have to get to the heart of the problem. What is this phantom sound, and why on earth is it so debilitating?
The clinical definition is actually pretty simple. The brain is perceiving a sound that has no outside source. It's not coming from the room you're in, it's being generated by these hyperactive, kind of misfiring circuits inside the brain's own auditory system. But for the person who's hearing it, that phantom sound is undeniably real.
And the consequences? They go way beyond just being annoying. This constant, relentless sound can lead to a whole cascade of serious health issues. We're talking everything from anxiety and depression to severe sleep deprivation, and it can just profoundly crater a person's entire quality of life.
This quote really hits the nail on the head. For decades, treatments were all about just masking the sound with other noises, or maybe helping patients cope with the stress of it. As this quote points out, there was this huge gap. There was no proven way to actually turn down the volume of the tinnitus itself. But what if we didn't have to just live with the sound? What if we could actually retrain the brain to turn it down or maybe even ignore it completely? Well, this is where a fundamental principle of neuroscience opens up a whole new world of possibilities: neuroplasticity. You might have heard this famous saying from way back in 1949, and it is the key to absolutely everything. It just means the brain's wiring isn't set in stone. It's constantly changing based on what we do and experience. The connections between our brain cells, our neurons, can be made stronger or weaker, and that means we can intentionally create or reinforce new pathways in the brain. So, how can we use this to our advantage? Well, you could try stimulating the brain with just a single input, like sound. That's called unimodal stimulation. But the research shows something really fascinating. If you present the brain with two perfectly synchronized signals, like sound and a gentle electrical pulse, you can trigger a much more powerful, long-lasting change. Bimodal stimulation is so effective because it can trigger this very process, which is known as long-term potentiation, or LTP. Okay, think of it like the brain's save button. By stimulating two pathways at the exact same time, you're basically telling the brain, hey, this new connection is important, and that makes it stronger and more permanent. It is literally the cellular basis for learning. And this brings us to the really innovative treatment at the heart of our explainer today: bimodal neuromodulation. It's a therapy designed to use the brain's own rules to its advantage. The core idea is brilliantly simple. The patient listens to some specific sounds through headphones, while at the exact same time a little device delivers a gentle, precisely timed electrical pulse to another part of the body, like the tongue or the neck. Okay, but why electricity? Sounds a little intense, right? Well, it's because electricity is the native language of our nervous system. Our brain cells communicate using tiny electrical signals. So by speaking this language, the therapy can directly influence and remodel the very circuits that are generating that phantom sound. This also shows just how flexible this whole approach is. The electrical stimulation can be applied to a bunch of different areas, like the tongue or the neck. Each one of these spots targets a major nerve that connects right back to the brain's auditory centers, giving us multiple ways to intervene in that faulty tinnitus circuit. So, this all sounds great in theory, right? Pairing sound with electricity to rewire the brain, it makes sense. But the big question is, does it actually work in practice? Let's take a look at the evidence from a really groundbreaking study. A landmark study published in Science Translational Medicine set out to answer that exact question. The whole goal was to see if this technique could calm down and desynchronize that hyperactive brain circuitry that researchers believe is the real root cause of tinnitus. And the researchers were super careful with their process.
It was a two-step approach. First, they proved the concept worked in guinea pigs, showing that the treatment actually reduced the physiological signs of tinnitus. Only after that did they move on to a rigorous, double-blind, sham-controlled study in humans. That's how you make sure the results aren't just a placebo effect.
And the results? Well, they were remarkable. The data showed a statistically significant drop in tinnitus loudness for the group that got the real treatment. And crucially, for half of those participants, the drop was so large it was considered clinically significant, which just means it made a real, tangible improvement in their daily lives. The therapy didn't just work on paper. It actually worked for people. So, this technology is a massive leap forward, but it's really important to see it not as some standalone magic bullet. It's one powerful piece of a much larger puzzle, a holistic approach to managing tinnitus. Dr. Ali Danesh proposed this really elegant SEC model. It shows how complete care needs to address three core components. First, the sensation itself, using tools like bimodal stimulation. Second, the emotion, so managing the stress and anxiety it causes. And finally, cognition, using therapy to reframe the negative thought patterns that tinnitus can create. Okay, so let's recap the big takeaways here. First, bimodal neuromodulation is a proven, non-invasive way to treat tinnitus by actively rewiring the brain. Second, the evidence is clear. Combining two types of stimulation is way more powerful than just using one. Third, this technology works best as part of a whole plan that also deals with the emotional and mental side of the condition. And finally, the future is all about bigger studies to make these treatments even better.
You know, this breakthrough doesn't just offer hope for people with tinnitus. It opens up this fascinating and powerful question about the future of medicine. If we can safely and effectively target and retrain specific brain circuits for this condition, what's next? Chronic pain? Depression? The possibilities. They're as vast as the intricate wiring of the human brain itself.